Hello everyone, welcome to my channel. In this video I'm going to be installing and configuring Filebeat on Elasticsearch nodes so that I can monitor the logs within the Kibana UI. If we look here at my whiteboard at my lab setup, I have three Elasticsearch nodes. I have a cluster. I view that cluster and the data within it using Kibana. And in other videos I set up logstash, and in another video I set up Filebeat to parse logs from my Fortinet firewall and then index them in Filebeat. But right now I'm going to be working on the Elasticsearch nodes themselves. So I'm going to be installing Filebeat on the Elasticsearch nodes themselves to look at the logs in this directory. It is var log whatever .log or .json. So Filebeat will be monitoring the logs of Elasticsearch. It's right here, and then right here. So if you look at the documentation, Filebeat is a lightweight shipper for forwarding and centralizing log data. So it is a little software that you install on a server, and then it looks at the data or at the log files and then sends them to Elasticsearch so you can monitor them and see them in Kibana, especially in here under the stack monitoring UI and under here. So see right now there's no logs shown. I'm going to be installing Filebeat on the nodes so that I can see logs here, and then I can click on logs and see more logs instead of going to the Elasticsearch node themselves and do a tail command on that log file. So I already installed Filebeat on node number 1, so I'm going to be working on node 2. So this is the overview here, and I'm going to be going to the quick start installation and configuration. And I'm going to go to the self-managed RPM, or actually I'm going to go to the installation options here, apt or yum. And I'm going to use the repository for yum. I'm going to create this repository in this directory here. There, Filebeat, no Filebeat repo. Copy paste this content. Save, and I'm going to say yum install Filebeat. And it should grab the latest version 8.3.2, and you have to make sure you are installing the same version as your cluster, your Elasticsearch nodes, 8.3.2, and Kibana is on 8.3.2 as well. If it grabbed a later version here, make sure to upgrade your cluster or your nodes before you install a newer version, or you can do a manual install for the version you want. Okay, now this is done. I'm going to go back here to the documentation. Step 2, connect to the Elastic Stack. So I'm going to go now to the Filebeat YAML and set up the output, the Elasticsearch output, so that it knows where to send the logs. So right here, nano filebeat.yaml. First of all, we need to enable this Filebeat input. So instead of false, we'll put true here, and enabled. We'll go down to this kibana section here. I'm going to put the IP address for my kibana instance. And then in the Elasticsearch output section here, we have to put the IP address of our Elasticsearch node, or 25. Hosts. We can do actually a list of hosts because I have 3 nodes. So now 100, 101, comma, and 102. Now I have a list of 3 nodes, and then HTTPS, username, password. Put my password here, and then I'm going to use this this option here for the CA trusted fingerprint. Of course, close the double quotation, and I'm going to grab the one from the first node that I already did. And if you don't know how to grab this fingerprint, you can go connect clients to Elasticsearch documentation. You have to run this command, use this CA cert in Elasticsearch. With this command, it will output the fingerprint for you. And then you get the fingerprint and put it here in the setting right now. Right, I'm just going to copy paste from the other node. Alright, I have the fingerprint, and it says here, if you plan to use our pre-built Kibana dashboards, configure the Kibana endpoint. Skip this step if Kibana is running on the same host as Elasticsearch, but I have a separate Kibana instance, so I'm going to use the username and password. I'm going to go up to the Kibana section under host, and indentation is important, and the password. So I created a user, my Kibana user. This will help in when I'm setting up Filebeat, and the next step here, when I'm setting up Filebeat, it will connect to Kibana and load basically index lifecycle management policies and maybe dashboards and ingest pipelines and all that stuff. So what I did to connect to Kibana, I went to the stack management, users, I created a user. I just called it the same thing as in the documentation, my Kibana user, and I gave it this built-in role, Kibana admin. So I'll just go here, I'll just edit. So you put the username, give it the password, the role, you just select it, it's a built-in role, and you save. Now I have that user, and it tells you here, it tells you more about those built-in roles. So I just use that, and the password is password, I think. Yeah, nothing too complicated. So I'm gonna save this configuration file. I'll go back to the Filebeat documentation. Next step is collect log data. So we're gonna be using the modules, Filebeat modules, because we are monitoring the Elasticsearch logs. We can enable the Elasticsearch module within Filebeat so that we can, so that Filebeat knows how to best parse the Elasticsearch logs. So Filebeat modules list, you can see all the modules you can enable. In my other video, I enabled the Fortinet module so that I can so that Filebeat helps parsing the syslogs coming in from Fortinet. So nothing enabled. I'm gonna say the next command, Filebeat modules enable Elasticsearch, and it is right here, this one. Okay, enable Elasticsearch, and now we can go to the Elasticsearch module, so YAML file of the module, so that we can specify more options. Filebeat modules elasticsearch.yaml. So now we have server logs, we have those garbage collection logs, audit logs. For now, I'm just gonna enable the server logs. So I'm gonna say here true, and it says set the custom paths for the log files. If I have custom files or custom locations or paths for the log files, I can set them here. If left empty, Filebeat will choose the paths depending on your operating system. And let us see here in the modules. Under the Elasticsearch module, I can see more options here, or specific for the module. So the module will set the default paths of the log files, but you can override the defaults. Make sure each multiple line or multi-line log event gets sent as a single event, and uses an Elasticsearch ingest pipeline to parse and process the log lines, shaping the data into a structure suitable for visualizing in Kibana. Okay, and I'm going to be using those paths right here because it didn't change anything from the defaults. So under let's see, I have to uncomment this, and I'm just gonna delete those comments. Plain text logs. Oh, another important thing, it says if you're running against Elasticsearch version greater than 7, configure the var path setting to point to the JSON logs. So instead of this .log, so I'm gonna put here .json. And there is the other one, star_server.json. I'm going to delete all these comments after. Okay, and I'll show you here this location and what the logs look like. So if I do ls-l, I'm just gonna grep JSON files. So it will be reading those ones, not the audit one. So 45, this is my cluster name _server.json, so it will read this file. So my logs, the logs of my cluster, and this one, Elasticsearch server JSON. Okay, I'm gonna go back. And now, after I did that, I'm on step 4, set up the assets. Filebeat setup-e. And before that, you can run setup test to check your configurations. It's right here, this command. To test your configuration file, change the directory where the Filebeat binary is installed and run Filebeat in the foreground with the following options specified. So I'm gonna do Filebeat test config-e and it will test the configurations. At the bottom here it will say config OK, and now I will set up the assets, Filebeat setup-e, and as long as you don't see any errors, it should be good here. And you can see what's happening. Index setup finished, loading dashboards, kibana must be running and reachable, and that's where I set up the IP address of kibana and the username and password so that it loads those dashboards and ingest pipelines. And this step takes a few seconds, maybe up to a minute. Okay, now this step is finished, and the bottom loaded ingest pipelines, and the last step here is to start the service. Service Filebeat start, and you can check with system controls status Filebeat. It is active, no errors here. I'm gonna go to the stack monitoring and see if I have any logs coming in. If I don't have any logs, I'm going to generate something so that we can see the logs. Nothing happened here. I'm just going to create a test index and then delete it just to see the logs, and I'm gonna go increase the time to see the logs from before. I'll show you what I did before. So I'll create a test index document1 and just say test index here, whatever it doesn't have to be, and then I'm going to delete this index. Okay, now if I go back to the stack monitoring here, the last 15 minutes, nothing happened. I click on logs. Oh, here you go. They showed up in here. Create mapping. Okay, that's from node 1. I don't know why they didn't show on the other screen, but when I clicked on it, I can see the logs here. It says delete index, and if you want to see more log entries, view or visit logs, the logs app to dive deeper. So I'm going to click on that, and it's basically under observability logs stream. So under observability logs and stream here, you can stream the logs live. Last one day, I'm going to say the last 5 minutes. And this is also from the Fortinet module, the Filebeat module for Fortinet. I'm gonna see if I find something from the Elasticsearch nodes, or I can search.node.name. Let's see. My other one maybe. Node 1. Anything happened in the last 5 minutes? So it's basically, these are the logs I'm seeing from the nodes and the Kibana UI. And I can view the details of these logs here, and it's a much better view than just, you know, the Linux console. So now you have logs here. You can maybe create dashboards and alerts on those logs and see if you have anything warning. You can alert yourself or error, and there's a lot of information. This is the log file path, so it's reading from var log Elasticsearch 45 _ server, This is my cluster name. And what else? Oh, this is the test index that I deleted. The log message is about deleting the index. And it is at 21:38, so 3 minutes ago, which is the one that I did. Okay, so this is how you see the details of this log, or you can just be here in the stack monitoring UI and looking at, oh, now I have this view here. It says there are 4 logs. You can click on them and go down here to this window here and see what you have new. So in this video, I installed and configured Filebeat on an Elasticsearch node so that I can monitor the logs of Elasticsearch and see them here in Kibana and on the Kibana UI, just like the other tutorials where I installed Metricbeat on the nodes, where I can see the metrics and the CPU usage and all the other stuff on the Kibana UI. Now I installed Filebeat. I hope this was helpful for you, and thank you for watching, and I will see you in the next one.